Welcome to Benson on Injury Law.
Welcome back to Benson on Injury Law with attorney Paul Benson. Paul is a personal injury attorney based in Wisconsin. He spent the last decade helping people across the state get the compensation they deserve after serious injuries. Paul believes in clear communication, standing up to insurance companies, and making sure regular people are treated fairly. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about bicycle accidents and what Wisconsin law says when a crash happens. Paul, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kevin.
So to start us off, can you explain how bicycle accident cases are treated differently from car accidents under Wisconsin law?
So they shouldn't be. Wisconsin law treats a bicycle the same as a car and a bicyclist the same as the driver of a car. There's actually different rules for e-scooters and things like that, but bicyclists are really treated the same under the law, I guess with the small exception of bike lanes and how that can play. But really, they're treated the same under the law. Where they are different is that there is unfortunately a stereotype among some people that they think cyclists shouldn't be on the road, that they think cyclists should be on sidewalks or on trails and they shouldn't be on the road. And that negative stigma that we know exists in the population does make these cases a lot more challenging sometimes.
Yeah, there's sort of a stereotype about that cyclists don't follow the law, they don't follow the rules. And I mean, what is it? The one bad apple spoiling the bunch or whatever. I mean, of course, we've all seen people riding side by side in the bike lane, spilling over into the regular lane. You have to work to get around them. You have to slow down and all that stuff. But it's obviously that's not that's not everybody. But how do you see that stereotype legitimately affect cases?
So, afterwards we have a chance to talk to the jury, and there's of course folks that compile all this jury research, and there are jurors that say, I just don't even think bicyclists should be on the road. So I didn't think the driver was at fault because I don't even think they should be on the road. So that's one area that I think it just really, that can be a challenge. I think it's very overcomable, and I think a good lawyer can, number one, educate that jury on the fact that cyclists do have equal rights on the road, and also just through the voir dire process where we get a chance to ask those jurors questions, hopefully be able to weed those folks out. So are they more challenging? Yes, I think you can overcome those obstacles, but the cases are maybe harder to settle because insurance companies and defense lawyers think that they're going to be able to get the jury on at least a couple jury members on their side with that negative stigma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in Colorado and a lot of people on bikes, and I used to live in Chicago and a lot of bike messengers and bikes and stuff like that. And 90% of them are great, but some people, yeah, they do stupid things. And it of course, people see it and they're just like, stupid bikes. And then it just sticks with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I think everyone's had that experience with someone who's, not followed the rules of the road, right? And has made your commute more challenging that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more dangerous for them than for you. And you felt like you still had to go out of your way to protect their safety because they weren't doing it. And that
Right.
can, that can be held against, the innocent folks sometimes too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are the most common causes of accidents that you see in your practice in Wisconsin? Because you've got a lot of different, you've got Milwaukee, you've got serious rural, you have stuff in between. What are the kind of accidents you see?
The most common I see is just distracted drivers. So drivers who, especially let's say on country roads, where cyclists may be out doing a longer ride, maybe it's perfectly bright out. They are sure that car must see them. What they don't know is that driver was possibly distracted by their phone or whatever it is. And I'm just seeing that increase, frankly. So distracted drivings for sure is number one.
How do you determine fault in situations like that, especially on country roads when there's no cameras at streetlights or on businesses and things like that?
Phone records are really good now. So a lot of times the phone records are going to be crucial. It's just getting a subpoena to get those phone records. And now you can see everything they were doing on their phone. So not just did they call or text, but now you can see whether they were manipulating, what apps they had open, what apps they were using. So getting those phone records are crucial in cases like this. A lot of cyclists also are using some kind of GPS technology, and you
Mm-hmm.
can go get that rider data and you can see where they were on the road. It's so good now. So, I've had cases like that where you can go get the rider data, you can plot that down on the road, and you can prove where your cyclist was on the street,
Wow.
which is really helpful.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. Yeah, I've seen those kind of apps before for running and cycling and stuff. So yeah,
Yep.
that makes sense. I wouldn't even have thought of that.
Yep.
Do you find that insurance companies treat bicycle accident claims differently from car accident claims?
I do. I think they think they're more defensible for that negative stigma that we
Mm.
talked about. But the injuries also can be a lot worse. The cyclists are just completely unprotected out there. So you see worse brain injuries, even with helmets. You see bad brain injuries. If you think about a car accident with no impact to your head, you see concussions just from the violent shaking. So even with the helmet, it's, like an NFL player, you still get bad brain injuries. Um, the road rash can be really bad and often lead to infection issues that sometimes, can cause sepsis and things like that. So you do see worse injuries. So I think the insurance companies, on one end, I think they see them as more defensible, but also they're more worried about the amount of damages that they're going to have.
What about skid marks, eyewitnesses? What kind of evidence makes a big difference in bike cases?
Yeah, the skid marks from the vehicle are going to be really important. You don't see them from the bicycle, but from the vehicle, that can be really, really important. I've gotten on cases where I've got them after the fact. I can think of a cyclist case actually where we could actually go back on Google Earth and see the skid marks from the vehicle
Oh, wow.
and get from going back closer in time to the accident, and shows that those matched up to the vehicle, and be able to prove then, well, an engineer could prove how long it took that vehicle to stop and how fast they were going. So yes, getting any kind of photos you can take are super important. And also, reporting it to the police department. Again, the law in Wisconsin, if there's more than $1,000 of property damage, you have to report that to the police department. So even though sometimes there can be some pressure to not report an accident to the police department, it's going to make sense to do that. It's a pretty low threshold. Most bikes cost, road bikes cost more than $1,000 these days.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
make sense to call the police. They can do a really professional job documenting everything, but do it yourself too. Take photos of not just your bike, but take photos of where your bike landed. Take photos of the other vehicle and where it ended up on the street, like its final resting point. Take photos of if there's any broken bicycle pieces or car pieces in the street. That can be helpful. The tire tracks can be helpful. All of that stuff can be really helpful for proving your case.
You mentioned before about certain jury members might look at the stereotype and have an opinion on that. I'm sure if you have any cyclists on the jury, they're obviously going to be in the other side. Do most people kind of fall in the well, the it's kind of a big bad car versus a poor person on a bike? Does it tend to favor the cyclists a lot of times because of that, or not necessarily?
I think so. I think once you educate them that cyclists have equal rights on the road, and you do a good job of introducing your client to the jury and telling their story where they don't think that they're the bad example cyclist that ruined your commute one morning, then I think, yes, I think it can flip in your favor for sure. But you got to do the work and make sure you're telling their story, so that they don't think that that's that kind of person.
Hmm. What's a bicycle case that sticks out in your mind that you worked on that shows the challenges riders face after an accident?
Sure, I can think of a case where the other driver alleged that my client drifted out of the bike lane and caused the accident, whereas my client alleged that he got clipped while he was in the bicycle lane. Um, we in that case we were able to use that Garmin. I think he had a Garmin. We were able to lay that down on top of the road and prove that the accident happened in the bike lane, which was just a great thing. And we were also able to prove, in deposition, this driver testified that my driver was in and out of the bike lane, making these big swoops in and out. And again, that Garmin data was able to show that in that area where the accident happened, it was just a long straight line with very minimal wavering. So that data was huge in that case to show, that, yeah, not that my client was telling the truth. he had stayed in the bike lane and we caught this other guy in a lie. And whenever you catch someone in a lie, that just increases the value of the case because the jury is going to be eager to punish them, frankly. So, that's one case that I was really happy with the result, that the insurance company initially denied, said we are not at fault for this. And we end up getting him a really big result.
Anyone who's ever lived in the city has known or seen someone who got doored, which is when the somebody opens their door, not looking behind to see if anyone's coming. Like if they're parking parallel and someone smacks into the door, a lot of times flies off their bikes. Could be really serious. Do you get many of those cases?
Yes. You see those a lot. Again, I'm here in Janesville. We've got bike lanes all throughout the downtown where the cars park. It goes, parking lane, bike lane, lane of traffic, and there's no protection in the middle. Yes. If you've got that bike lane there, the person getting in their vehicle or getting out of their vehicle has a duty to make sure that they are checking the right of way, just like anything else. So you do see those. Another big one you see is at four-way stops, cars not seeing the bicyclists because it's just smaller and going right through a stop sign and hitting them. You see those a lot. And those can cause, anytime I see those running red lights or running stop signs and hitting the cyclist, it seems like there's often an element of PTSD that goes with that the cyclists, because I think they're so vulnerable, their brain wants to protect them. And it can be really hard for those cyclists to go through an intersection going forward.
Yeah, I know that there's laws that change around the country. I think it's state by state, but as far as do cyclists have to stop at stop signs, some states say they do, some states say they don't. They just have to be reasonable about what's around them. What's the Wisconsin law say?
So it's called a Montana stop, was the first state that said, yes, that put into law that bicyclists do not have to come to a complete stop at the stop sign. Wisconsin has not put that into law yet, so it's still a reasonableness standard. I think that's a hard one to ever know in my situation, unless that person was still going pretty fast, whether they came to a complete stop or were rolling at 2 miles an hour, that may or may not make a difference on the liability side. But yes, you're right. It's the Montana stop rule that was put into effect so that cyclists don't have to get completely off their bicycle if there's no one else at the stop sign.
Do you feel like they're aware of the laws and are they aware of what they're able to, what they can claim and whatnot? Or do they just kind of, I knew people who got hit by cars sometimes on bikes and they were just like, I'm not hurt that bad. They just went home. I knew that quite a bit actually in Chicago. Do people know their rights?
I think that happens a lot. I think people are embarrassed. I think in the moment you don't want to get the other driver's insurance information. I ride a bicycle a lot, or a lot in college and law school. I've been hit 3 or 4 times. And when I was in college, twice I got hit in college and I did not get the other insurance information and I got banged up both times. But same thing. I now think back and think, I was just embarrassed. Even though it wasn't my fault. You went through something really traumatic. You're hurt.
Yeah, you're in shock,
on the
probably.
ground, and you kind of just want to get out of there. So yes, I think that happens a lot. On your question on knowing the law, I think that a lot of cyclists do and a lot of cyclists don't. One thing I will say is insurance companies really try to use that against riders. So they will be looking to make sure you had the right reflectors on your bike, that you had the right lights on your bike. They will ask if you were using hand signals, where you were traveling, all of those kinds of things. And they will try to get you on something small to try to get fault off of their driver. So I do see that as a weapon the insurance company uses.
Same thing like we've talked about in previous podcasts about other injuries. Do you recommend cyclists don't give too much information at the scene, don't give too much information to insurance companies, talk to a lawyer, the usual stuff pretty much?
Yeah, I mean, give all the information to the police officer, right? Again, you don't want to go above and beyond and start speculating about things you don't know, but make sure you give your factual side of the story to the police officer. Stick to the facts. Completely different with the insurance company. You do not want to give a recorded statement to the insurance company because that's going to be used against you later. But giving that information to the police, especially in a bike case, is going to be really important because the driver is going to have a different version than you in these bicycle cases.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to see it in a different way. It's just
Yeah.
human nature, probably in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And who gets a citation is often not admissible in court. However, it makes a big difference when it comes to settling your case, because that's going to be the starting point for the insurance companies who was cited, because they see that as, well, this is a relatively neutral person. So they happen to put a lot of stock in that. So no, you do want to make sure you give your factual version of what happened to the police officer. That's really important.
Wow, interesting stuff for sure. All right, well, that's it today for Benson on Injury Law. To learn more about how Paul Benson helps Wisconsin cyclists and injury victims, visit paulbensonlawfirm.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a review if you have a second. Paul, great chatting with you as always. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Kevin. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.